Across the elegant conference table, Jillian Ames sat with impeccable posture, and her look said, "We appreciate your years of service, but it's time for fresh perspectives. Your role is terminated effective immediately." The words hung in the air between us like stale perfume. At 42, she was 17 years my junior and professionally neutral. She had an MBA from an Ivy League university and credentials from prominent consulting firms, which she managed to bring up in every company meeting. Rather than blinking, I stood and held out my hand, wishing you and the business continued success. My voice stayed calm, showing that none of the rage roiling inside me was expressed. Jillian let out a soft sigh, letting me know that she had anticipated tears of desperation or at least some opposition. She shook my hand for a moment, releasing her hold, and non-committal human resources will help you transition, and we're offering a generous 6-month severance, given company policy. Her tone implied that, after 25 years of service, I should be thankful for this meager amount. My name is Diane Mullins, and I'm 59 years old. Until 10 minutes ago, I joined Silverstone Naturals as Vice President of Partnerships while we were still a small wellness company based in a repurposed warehouse in Dallas, Texas. In those early days, we distributed 3 product lines throughout precisely 47 locations. Now that our organic vitamins and wellness products are available in more than 5,000 stores across the country, I've negotiated every significant agreement that helped grow this business. When bigger rivals attempted to take over valuable shelf space, I was the one who came up with innovative solutions. Even during the pandemic, when supply chain problems threatened our expansion, I obtained substitute supplies without sacrificing quality as I filled the corner of my office that I had earned through years of devoted work and looked at the awards on my wall for achievement in business. My assistant Catherine arrived in the doorway, her eyes red-rimmed. "This is wrong," she murmured. "Everyone's Partnership Vendor of the Year award for outstanding contribution to industry standards represented countless hours of work, relationship building, and strategic thinking. When we discuss it, no one knows why." "Catherine, it's business, nothing personal," I said with a soft grin. But since her arrival, Jillian had been methodically purging the old guard, so we both knew it wasn't true. As I carried my box of possessions toward the elevator, I passed the shining sign that reads Silverstone Naturals, Wellness Without Compromise. 6 months ago, my termination was just the most recent in her drive for fresh perspectives, her preferred euphemism for ageism. I couldn't help believe that some concessions were clearly acceptable in the long run. Looking back, I should have anticipated this. The first red flag was Jillian's arrival at Silverstone Naturals last October, when the board enthusiastically hired her and hailed her as a transformational leader who would. At her welcoming reception, I held out my hand and introduced myself as Diane Mullins, Vice President of Partnerships. "I've worked with Silverstone for 25 years, and I'm excited to work with you to take our firm to the next level in the cutthroat wellness market." She grinned, but her eyes evaluated me coolly. "It was great to meet you, Diane, and I'm excited to add some new energy to our strategies." It seemed innocent enough at the time, but Jillian recruited 3 consultants from her former firm, and they carried out what she called a talent landscape assessment, which basically evaluates all executives and directors. During my evaluation session, the main consultant asked, "How do you stay current with digital marketing?" I saw that they spent a lot more time with the younger team members. Trends, and do you feel at ease with the quick changes in technology? When I brought up my worries to my husband over dinner that night, the questions felt like they were meant to highlight alleged generational flaws. Squeezing my hand, Robert whispered, "I think they're building a case against the older executives. You've survived 4 CEOs and 2 acquisitions, and you'll outlast Jillian too," I said, pushing my salad around the plate. The next week, Thomas Grayson, our 62-year-old chief. Despite these warning indications, I had one piece of consolation. 5 years prior, a 36-year-old from Jillian's last consulting business took over as operations officer when he was urged to retire, and 2 weeks after, our 57-year-old marketing director was restructured out of her post. Through meticulous financial planning and some money I inherited from my mother, I was able to make an investment that was now more valuable than ever before. I had a sizable silent share in CoreLogic's distributors, which managed 70% of Silverstone's national fulfillment contracts. Evaluated risk and observed how reliant Silverstone had grown on CoreLogic's specialist services and nationwide infrastructure. Our wellness goods needed to be handled with care, in temperature-controlled conditions, and on exact delivery dates. Be practically impossible without causing major disruption. I had set up a holding LLC called Metork Ventures to manage my business interests outside of Silverstone, and it was entirely lawful and moral for me to disclose having outside investments. Without mentioning what they when I woke up at 6 as usual the morning after my termination, I had nowhere to go, and the house felt eerily quiet without the usual rush to get ready for work. I never imagined that this silent investment would become my insurance policy, but according to company policy. I made coffee and sat on my 59 years old. I was technically too young to retire, but I was mature enough to face major obstacles in the job market. I knew data showed that the typical job search for CEOs over 50 took over a year. I was sitting on my back porch, watching the sunrise and thinking about my uncertain future. Twice as long as their younger counterparts, and the majority ultimately took jobs that paid less and had less prestige than their prior positions. Robert joined me on the porch, coffee in hand, and asked, "What's next?" He said in a soft voice, "I don't know yet, but I'm not sure," and I groaned. When I finished my dinner tonight at 7 p.m. at Giovanni's, Harold Peters, the CEO of CoreLogic, buzzed my phone with a text message. Harold and I had a special relationship since, in addition to knowing me as a Silverstone executive, he also knew that I was a major investor. Harold welcomed me with a sympathetic demeanor that evening at Giovanni's, a small Italian restaurant in downtown Dallas, where we upheld stringent boundaries between these two responsibilities through Metork Ventures, never sharing sensitive information that would create conflicts of interest. As we sat down in our booth, Harold came right to the point. Jillian Ames called me this morning, wanting to revisit our partnership agreement and look into more advantageous conditions. To put it another way, she wants to reduce expenditures at our expense, so I nodded without being surprised. That's her style, fast wins to impress the board without thinking about long-term effects. Harold sipped his wine. Normally, I'd begin when our contract with Silverstone is up for renewal in 4 months. I need to be careful to keep the line between my duties as an investor and a former Silverstone executive as CEO in order to preserve continuity. I also need to safeguard CoreLogic's interests, which Silverstone desires. He halted as a key investor. To let you know that we're thinking about not renewing since the consequences were obvious. If Jillian insists on renegotiating conditions below, Silverstone would face serious consequences without basic rationale. Premium service at budget costs is not viable for us. Retailers wouldn't wait for months to locate a substitute distributor with equivalent statewide infrastructure. Instead, they would cut Silverstone's shelf space and give it to rivals who could deliver consistently. I took a deep sip of my wine, Harold, and I have faith in you to make ideal choice for CoreLogic's, but I'd like to suggest something else for your review. Harold arched an eyebrow, but I'm paying attention. What if we came up with something fresh? I leaned forward a little bit, a wellness brand that was developed from the ground up using a contemporary supply chain. As I described my vision, Harold's attitude changed from one of sympathy to one of interest. He continued, "When I finished, very interesting indeed, and 2 weeks after I was fired, I got a call from Catherine, my former coworker. Efficiency, legacy systems, and outdated thinking. Have you heard what's going on, Assistant Diane?" She called in a clear whisper from a secret area of the Silverstone offices. "What's going on?" I inquired, sinking into my home office chair. "It's chaotic as Jillian implements all these changes. At the same time, new packaging, reformulated products, and other marketing strategies were introduced. Now, there is discussion of distribution issues, on which I kept neutral. It appears that CoreLogics isn't cooperating with Jillian's cost-cutting. Harold had kept me updated on Jillian's increasingly assertive approach to renegotiating terms, including her threat to investigate other options, so I wasn't surprised when they said that the current contract must be upheld until its expiration, and that they wouldn't accept the new terms she suggested. I politely responded that the board convened an emergency meeting yesterday, and although Jillian tried to keep it quiet, I overheard her secretary setting up an alternative distribution option if CoreLogics wouldn't fulfill her demands. Supply chain contingencies. After expressing my gratitude to Catherine for the update, I spent the day contacting my connections in the business. The wellness product market has seen a significant shift in recent years, with customers seeking greater transparency, sustainability, and genuine narratives behind their. Later that week, I spoke with Andrew Lambert, a talented product developer who had been sidelined at Silverstone, who saw that buying presented the ideal opportunity for a new entry with the correct attitude and without the baggage of an established brand having to reinvent itself. Like me, he had been criticized for not being sufficiently forward-thinking during Jillian's restructuring, even though he had a history of successful innovations. "How are you holding up, Andrew?" As we sat down at a peaceful corner table, an AI inquired carefully, and Andrew's eyes lit up. "What would you say about starting fresh somewhere else?" He shrugged. "They moved me to special projects, which means I have no real responsibilities anymore, which means I'm basically being paid to do nothing until they find a reason to let me go." A preliminary business plan for Evergreen Wellness, a new firm that specializes in customized wellness products with sustainable sourcing and transparent manufacturing procedures, was contained in a folder that I pushed across the table to the individual I was forming a team with. Said that I need a product development leader who is not afraid to innovate the way things are done. Andrew meticulously analyzed the materials. "This is impressive, Diane, but beginning from scratch requires investment." "Would be significant," I said, without revealing that the main investor was me via Metork Ventures, and I had obtained initial distribution capabilities. Once more, I kept CoreLogics's participation ambiguous. By the time after our coffee, Andrew promised to join Evergreen Wellness as soon as he could leave Silverstone with grace. Over the course of the following 2 weeks, I added 4 more important team members, all seasoned professionals who had either been fired by Jillian or were becoming more and more unhappy under. In the meantime, Silverstone's distribution issues were getting worse. Through my industry network, I discovered that big retailers were getting alerts that Silverstone deliveries would have delays in the upcoming months. Her leadership each contributed invaluable experience and business connections. It was customary for CoreLogics to notify retail partners of possible supply chain changes when a distribution contract was in jeopardy. The messages caused anxiety in the retail sector, and customers started contacting Silverstone for assurance, only to obtain evasive answers that further damaged trust, just as I had predicted that Jillian's cost-cutting plan was failing miserably. By attempting to coerce CoreLogics into taking less advantageous conditions, she had undermined Silverstone's most important business relationship. Monica Reynolds, chairwoman of Silverstone's board of directors, phoned me unexpectedly a month after I left the company and asked to meet privately. We had always had a friendly working relationship, but we met at a quiet restaurant on the outskirts of Dallas, and Monica looked exhausted, with heavy circles under her eyes and a tension in her shoulders that hadn't been there before. "Thank you for meeting me, Diane," she said, adding that she had eventually supported Jillian's decision to restructure the executive team. "Because assume you're not feeling particularly sympathetic towards Silverstone right now because you spent 25 years creating that company," she remarked after we placed our order. I calmly responded, "My sentiments are complex," and she nodded, "That's exactly why I'm here. We have a situation, and I think even though I had a decent concept about Monica leaning forward, our distribution network is collapsing, and CoreLogics has officially informed us that they will not be renewing their contract when it expires in 3 months. You might be the only one who can assist us in grasping the situation." I remained neutral when I refused all suggested changes to the current arrangement. While it may sound difficult, it may be disastrous. We have contacted 6 different distribution businesses, but none of them can compare. When I asked Jillian about CoreLogic's capabilities, particularly their temperature-controlled facilities for our plant-based products, I was really interested in how my successor was handling the situation. Monica's face darkened, but she insisted that we could construct our own. We don't have that much time or money, so why are you telling me this? I asked, but I knew exactly why you formed our partnership with CoreLogic's in the first place. Distribution network, but the board has seen the numbers, and it would take 2 years and millions of dollars in capital expenditure to create something comparable. They trusted you from the beginning. Harold Peters no longer answers Jillian's calls, but I have a feeling he would talk to you. Monica gave me a hopeful smile. Would you think about serving as a consultant to help save this relationship? The irony was almost too good that Jillian had thrown me out for fresh viewpoints, and now the board wanted my assistance to clean up the mess she had made. I'm honored that you considered me, I said thoughtfully, but I've actually been very busy with a new project. Monica was taken aback to hear that I'm launching a wellness brand called Evergreen Wellness, and we're concentrating on. I grinned when Monica asked me to connect the dots about customized nutrition supplements with sustainable sourcing. In fact, we've already secured countrywide distribution with CoreLogic's. I nodded, and Monica's face went pale as she grasped the ramifications. I have always had great professional ties with our business partners, so I said in a non-committal manner, Diane, is there anything I should know about your relationship with CoreLogic's? Before Monica could continue, my phone buzzed with a message from Harold Riverstream Retail. Meeting for those interested in Evergreen goods tomorrow at 10 a.m. The fact that Riverstream was already looking at other options was telling because they were one of Silverstone's biggest retail clients, accounting for about 15% of their overall revenue. I gestured for the check to go, saying, I have an early meeting tomorrow. Monica appeared defeated as we said our goodbyes, and I grinned. Diana, if you reconsider helping us with CoreLogic's, the board would be extremely grateful. I'll keep that in mind, but like I mentioned, I'm really focused on my new business right now. Sometimes, the market needs new ideas, and Monica wasn't blind to the fact that my own words were being used against Silverstone. Her look informed me that she finally realized that the news that followed sent shockwaves across the wellness industry. The company's distribution dilemma was no accident. In a last-ditch effort to address Silverstone's distribution crisis, Jillian Ames revealed an ambitious plan to establish their own distribution network. Featured a significant capital raise that would dilute the value of current shareholders and an estimated 18-month completion timeline. Silverstone's stock fell 17% in a single day, and I watched the developments with disinterest while concentrating on developing Evergreen Wellness. We had already secured office space and we completed our first product line of customized nutritional supplements in a contemporary building in downtown Dallas, assembling a core team of 15 seasoned professionals, many of whom had previously worked at Silverstone. Our collaboration with CoreLogic's gave us a major edge, and with Harold's help, we had designed instead of trying to retrofit outdated systems, as Silverstone had done for years. We should have optimized our supply chain's efficiency from the start. However, just as we were finalizing our launch plans, I received another unexpected call, this time from Benjamin Wright, Silverstone's founder, who had retired 5 years prior. He was chairman emeritus, Diane, and no longer involved in day-to-day operations, but he still had a sizable ownership share. When I replied, I need to see you, it's important, we met at his expansive ranch outside of Dallas, where he had retired. To enjoy his at 72 years old, Benjamin maintained the lucid intellect and straightforward demeanor that had enabled him to succeed as an entrepreneur. After we had settled into his study, he demanded, "What the heck is happening to my company?" I said that Jillian had methodically driven out seasoned executives like myself in order to pursue her vision for a younger, more youthful workforce. Heard CoreLogic's is cutting ties, you built that relationship. What's going on? The question I had been waiting for then came, "And what's this I hear about you starting a competing company?" Benjamin grumbled, "Damn foolishness. Experience matters in this business, it always has." "I invested in CoreLogix years ago, Benjamin, with CoreLogix's support no less. It was a private financial decision that was properly declared in accordance with Silverstone's regulations about outside investments. As for Evergreen Wellness, yes, I'm creating a new brand following." Benjamin carefully examined me when I was forced to leave Silverstone because I wasn't prepared to retire. "I always told the board that they didn't properly appreciate you since you were more than just the partnerships guy, you knew the entire company from beginning to finish." He leaned forward and told me the truth. "Did you plan this distribution crisis, Diane?" "I made professional and financial decisions that safeguarded my interests, and I carefully responded, just like you instructed me to do." Benjamin's face lit up slowly. I answered, "Evergreen is my priority now, but I have no desire to see Silverstone destroyed because there are too many good people still working there." He leaned back in his chair and said, "So what happens now that Silverstone is on the ropes and your position to deliver the knockout punch depends?" Benjamin nodded. The board carefully scheduled an urgent meeting for tomorrow to address Jillian's future. He stared at me intently, asking if there was any chance of preserving the fundamental reasoning if there were major changes made at the top relationship. I gave this a lot of thought. I can't speak for CoreLogix because they're making business decisions based on their own interests, but new leadership might open up a chance for a new dialogue. Benjamin grinned when I purposefully used the phrase, new dialogue. "I still have some power over the board, so maybe it's time I make some calls." On the way home, I became aware that things had changed beyond my initial projections. What had started out as a straightforward tale of retaliation was becoming more complicated, and potentially when the Dallas Business Journal headline read, "Silverstone Naturals CEO ousted after distribution crisis. Founder returns as interim leader just 3 months after pushing me out," it was an industry realignment in which I had considerable influence. I was notified via many texts that Benjamin Wright had come out of retirement to stabilize the company he built, announcing a return to core values and a renewed focus on important business ties. This announcement was made by the same board that had previously supported her fresh viewpoints. Though I had no intention of returning to Silverstone Evergreen Wellness, letters from former coworkers expressed varying degrees of happiness at this change of events. Catherine, my former assistant, was very joyful. "When are you coming back?" We had already gotten commitments from retailers that would account for more than 60% of our anticipated first-year sales targets, and we were just 1 week away from our formal launch. When my phone called, Benjamin Wright began, "I assume you've heard the news." Without preamble, "I have congratulations on your return. It's only temporary until we right the ship," he said, which leads me to the reason I called. "I need to meet with Harold Peters today. If it's feasible, I can't speak for Harold, but you can help with an introduction." Benjamin retorted, "I'm not asking you to abandon your new venture, but there's no reason why our businesses can't compete in the market." He was correct, of course. My intention was never to demolish Silverstone, but rather to highlight the negative effects of undervaluing experience and loyalty. "I'll get in touch with Harold." I agreed, but he will make the final decision. As Benjamin and Diane stated, the board now knows exactly what they lost when they let you go. It was a minor win, but a rewarding one nonetheless. A month later, I introduced Evergreen Wellness to the industry on stage at the Natural Products Expo in Anaheim, California. The response was tremendous, with our exhibit constantly crowded with potential customers, interested retailers, and media representatives. From my vantage point on stage, I could see Silverstone's much smaller booth across the exhibition hall. I emphasized to the gathering of industry experts that our approach is customization without compromising, as we believe wellness isn't one size fits all, and neither should our solutions be. Benjamin Wright was present, along with a noticeably more varied executive team that included some of Jillian's more astute hires and a number of veterans who had been reinstated. After our launch, Silverstone and CoreLogics had in fact reached a new agreement that was not as advantageous as their previous contract, but it was still sufficient to avert total disruption of Silverstone's operation. Harold had taken the decision on his own, but I believe my argument that industry diversity was beneficial had an impact on his thinking. Following my presentation, Benjamin came up to me and remarked, "Impressive launch," with a sincere tone. I accepted his handshake and remarked, "You've put together an amazing team." "Thank you." "How is everything at Silverstone going?" "The board has authorized a more realistic schedule for creating our complementing distribution network while preserving the essential logics for important then." He grinned adorably, "and we're now referring to it as a hybrid approach instead of a crisis response." I couldn't help but smile because, as Benjamin acknowledged, we've discovered the hard way that perspective counts. He stopped, and Jillian Ames adopted a stance. Andrew joined me at our booth as Benjamin left, and we both smiled at the irony. I hear that a tiny business in Seattle is really thrilled about her new perspectives. Was it awkward? Not at all, I said when he inquired. Retorted, "It seems appropriate. Closing true success in both business and life isn't about causing destruction, but rather confirmation of my experience with the company devoted to a prosperous rival had returned full circle, not with resentment but in support of my value."